Hello, everyone. Welcome to the table. I'm Tom and Michelle Weaver, and we welcome you in today. We are from Come to the Table Ministry, and thank you for joining us. We are going live today with some special friends of ours from a long time ago, and it's just a pleasure to have Rodney and Tracy with us. We are live, so if you have any comments or questions for them, feel free to put it in the comments section down below, and you can ask them any question they want. We're going to kind of focus on the family system and how betrayal and addiction has affected and both families and also what we can do or what are the best things that have helped them on this long journey of recovery. So let's bring in Rodney and Tracy from Pure Desire Ministries. Rodney, Tracy,
Hi.
Glad to have you with us today. How are you guys?
Very good.
Yeah.
Always good to be with Tom and Michelle.
Nice to see you guys.
Yeah, great friends from. We were just talking right before this. Is like, was that really the first time I met you in the fly fishing boat in Montana?
Montana. That was one of the memories I have. And then, of course, I have the memory of being at the table where you turned and said, "Rod, have you read this?" And it was this whole beautiful kind of a, I don't know how you say it.
It's like a poem. Yeah, about the table.
Coming to the table, and there's a place for you here.
I still have a picture of that.
It so captured your heart, and it was so beautiful just to like come to the table ministries. It was like I was in the room where it happened, you know.
Yes,
where the Holy Spirit spoke to my brother Tom, and he heard the invitation to participate. It really was a sacred, beautiful moment. I got a little goosebumps just talking about it.
I know. It was awesome.
Like it was your obedience that have helped hundreds, if not thousands, just the ripple effects of people in that part of the country, but all over, that are taking the resources and the stories of your lives. And I think that's the beauty of participation. I mean, that's so cool to just be there when it happened.
That's awesome.
It's because of you two that Tracy and I met.
Yeah.
That was the real outcome we were looking for.
Exactly. I agree.
We were just stepping stones.
We needed to meet. But we do need each other, right? Leadership.
Absolutely.
And as you know, part of that sorority we didn't sign up for, we have a heart for each other in so many ways, and it goes deeper. And then the people that we walk alongside, right? That we mentor or we care for when their worlds are falling apart, you know?
Exactly.
We love
Get to
you guys.
sit and ask the questions with them.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you guys become very special, dear friends to us, and we appreciate your friendship. So
Yeah, we do.
thank you. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your story maybe and what you guys do? I know most people probably realize you're from Pure Desire, but share a little bit about your journey and how you got to this point.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll jump in, but I been a pastor for 30 years, and it was about 35 years. About 29 years ago, I leaned into my own recovery through what at that term was a sexual trauma assessment treatment therapist, where a young man raised in faith, sincere prayers, confession, doing everything my faith community shared with me to do, but just wasn't finding wholeness and healing and how to manage my sexual, how to process my traumas in any kind of way that I could make sense of. So that was really out of my box, but it started on a whole different trajectory for me 29 years ago. Of course, about 6 months into that was Tracy being aware of my addiction, and that became her betrayal that she became aware of. And we had to really, a lot of broken pieces and a lot of like, well, where does this fit? And what do we do with this? And we needed a lot of hand holding kind of moving forward, or where do we go from here? And I think back about those days and just wish we would have had more Tom and Michelle's Pure Desire, just more resources, Jake Porter and all those that are out there. But anyway, God help and God journey, and then came across Pure Desire 15 years ago, and then really realized I was still carrying shame around my story. And when I met PD and I started leading groups at our church, that's where the Christ in my brother spoke to the lie in me, and my shame began to heal. And so once your shame heals, you kind of take the gloves off and you're just like, well, let's go now. Let's just help as many as we can before we get out of here. And that really was where we felt another layer of our healing. I think healing comes in layers. And we heard our call, our kind of come to the table moment, so to speak, and left our congregation, became ambassadors for Pure Desire 8 years ago, and continue to serve with the team. Tracy is on the clinical team and helps with betrayed partners. And then I do a number of roles, whatever they assign me to do. That month, I help the cause. And right now, helping us in some leadership positions, and just thrilled about this conversation, lowering shame and helping people move toward health, healing, and wholeness.
I love your one line that you say a lot. Was it you went in Tuesday expecting to be fixed by Thursday, and something else?
Yeah. Like I say, I went in on Tuesday, hoping to be fixed by Friday, so I look good on Sunday. I just want that extreme makeover. Just make me look good to fix all my problems.
Wear that mask.
And a little bit, that's kind of the Jesus I got handed. It's instant. It's it's just boom. But character and growth and development is a process. And there's great words for that in Scripture about therapeutic, how our healing is a process.
Absolutely.
I think it's interesting now for us because we look back, like he said, 29 years. And there's just so many phases and layers of that healing. And our starting point is not where we are right now. And my starting point of understanding wasn't even, I've never heard the term sexual addiction when Rodney shared that with me. And he had been fortunately meeting with therapists before, which was helpful. And there weren't a lot of groups or support. So I look back at that and go, thank God for those pieces. And that person was working through Patrick Carnes' material. So the things that we've built on, those were the beginnings of that. And so when others, I have to, in my mind, go back to that beginning. And I can remember it clearly. When there's betrayal, you remember the details very clearly. So it's not something I forget, but it is something that I've healed from. And so to be able to walk back through that with somebody and know they're exactly where they're supposed to be. They're having a normal reaction to an abnormal experience, right? And the things that they need to know of, this is right where I'm supposed to be right now. And I can keep walking forward. And then the layers just with each other, in ourselves, with our family, with God and our faith. I just look back and I'm like, there are just so many seasons of that, of understanding and growing and healing, that that's a painful and also beautiful part of the process, and maybe part of life, right? Because life throws things at us outside of even betrayal, right? Things and relational things that are beyond our control. And God gives us that opportunity to keep growing. So.
That is so true. We always say embrace the roller coaster, but life is a roller coaster as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Just wait. There's a turn coming. There's a course ahead. You know what I mean? If you haven't had it, just keep living. It's coming.
Yeah.
There's always something for sure.
And I think that's a good point too, Michelle, because sometimes people think this is all because of the betrayal. Anything our kids are going through, anything that we feel that stress in our marriage. And the truth is there are a lot of ways that we are not equipped going into marriage and family for the things that are going to come our way. And certainly addiction and betrayal are a part of that and can cause a lot of harm. So it's not to minimize that, but just, sometimes when I'm working with someone, some of these are very normal. Your empty nest grief right now, that's normal. And it's mixed in with, because you're fresh, maybe in your betrayal, it's mixed in with a lot of things. But I think that can be helpful to people. There are a lot of different ways that we have to experience relational health and growth. And certainly this is a big one. It's a big one, and it takes time to get on that same page and be working that together. So.
Yeah, I think what you said too, it's big. I think, we can't minimize on top of everything else. This is big. It's like that nuclear bomb on top of everything else you have.
Yeah. Well, and part of that big part is, speaking of betrayal, is that whole nervous system overload. Yeah. Because I think that goes beyond what we would ever expect, even though we might see it. And that's sometimes why it's hard for our spouse to understand our journey, even if they're trying to, even if they're doing good work. But there's the explosion that happens in you. And part of it at the beginning, you cannot control that. Eventually you can. You get the right support around you. You get the right safety in your body, and there's lots of tools for that we know and we help people with. But at the beginning, it feels like the runaway train.
Right.
And then eventually that's where we step into okay, now I see that, take some of that back and begin to rebuild.
Yeah, because in life, all those things that are chaotic and scary and you're trying to work through, now all of a sudden that person is the person that you don't want to run to. That was your safety net.
Right. Right.
Then it's like
Yeah.
you turn around, it's like, where do I go? What corner
Yeah.
do I go and run in and just sit in and just
Right.
face it?
Right.
Because I
Yeah.
don't know, I don't have that person.
Right.
Yeah.
And so many things contribute to that too. Our family systems, good or bad, how we see our faith, good or bad, our wiring as people, our personalities, what are some of the, just that, all that kind of has a blend. And sometimes we like to throw the baby out with the bathwater rather than discerning what's helpful here that I want to hang on to, but what didn't serve me well here that I need to maybe set that aside now. We laugh with our kids sometimes and say, you were raised in Rodney and Traci Wright's home. Whatever's healthy about us, take with you and keep it. But our dysfunction, leave it here. Don't carry on our dysfunction. Learn a better way in whatever sphere of life that may be. Learn a better way, keep growing. And so I think as we get into this conversation, just what does a healthy family system look like? I say this in weddings I performed for years, hundreds of weddings. There's no such thing as a perfect marriage. There's never been one, but there are healthy marriages and unfortunately unhealthy ones. The healthy ones recognize mistakes and keep growing. But the unhealthy ones don't do that. And so what does that look like to create a healthy family system where learning, growing, safety, love, so that mistakes can become maybe problems, not patterns that are continued in our life. But I think that sets the trajectory. And we're definitely not experts on all of this, but we are fellow individuals in this journey, and we've learned and had our eyes wide open. And we just want to pass something healthier on to our adult kids, and as they're raising their families now, say, offer grandparents that don't stand critical, but stand as helpful by our story and our journey.
Yeah. I think a lot of times we do get stuck in that we have to follow this certain procedure or this plan. A lot of people either or. It's not and both. Like you said, even with the family systems, you take what works or what has worked, and leave the rest. Don't take the ugly stuff with you. And we see that.
And Jay Stringer in his book has that concept, honesty and honor. Sometimes we feel like if I'm honest about some of my family of origins dysfunction, that I'm dishonoring. And that was a little hard for me when I was young to think about that. Or if there was a part of my faith or my Jesus tradition, in my case, that I got handed that wasn't healthy, if I spoke against that, I would be dishonoring. So you can honor and be honest at the same time, right? It's not either or, but both and. And not everybody can hold that. You know what I'm saying? Like if I'm honest about my Rodney as a dad not being, did things that were hurtful to my sons, maybe in some emotional way or whatever, somehow they would be dishonoring me. Well, no, you can do both. And I think as parents that as we age, we want them to say, learn from us. And if we can help repair, continue to own, bring clarity of what we were navigating, I think that's passing on good tribal elder lessons that are going to serve the next generation well.
I guess you mentioned the layers in the family system. You did mention this a little bit right now, but what are some of those things? Have you seen any residual impact or damage, 20 years later from the addiction side of it? How is the betrayal and something that happened 29 years ago? Is it still resonating in the family systems now? Or how do you kind of navigate the healing of the family? And now with the grandkids, before this, you were showing your grandkids, and we got 3 of them too. How do we navigate through that family dynamic now, based on what happened many years ago?
I think that's a really good question. And of course, we think about that all the time, right? Because that's as parents at whatever stage we're at, we're thinking about those pieces. And one of the things that comes to mind is that through whatever situation it is, we chose kind of just to keep taking that path of humility and appropriate, age conversations. So sometimes when, moving into that adulthood, there's a lot more deep, more vulnerable conversations that you can have. And I think that really made a big impact on our family dynamic, right? Because we shared with them when they were teenagers, they were young kids, but they were still affected by it,
Mm-hmm.
But then we shared it as teenagers, and then we were progressing to have less shame and talk more about it. So we have our own things we're working through. So we definitely didn't do everything, perfectly. I don't think anyone does, but things that you look back on. But we kept that, like, we're going to continue to walk in with humility and openness. And then we saw over the long term of that change significantly. And so there were shifts there. But I think there's that piece of I'm going to heal and do my part. And then I have to release what the outcome is of that, because each of our children are going to take things differently, experience them differently. It's going to affect them differently, And so one of the things with grandkids is, like, Papa wrote a book, so we're in charge of helping with that.
We'll talk to Papa and Grammy about that.
Yeah.
That's a joke for them, but really the younger generation communicating and going, what do we want to share with our kids? And they know we have to, because
Less shame. They have less shame.
It's not if our kids are exposed to things, it's when. So I think the younger generation, they actually will do a lot better than we did. And they shouldn't just pass it all off to us. But we are support people at this season of life.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing too, that we get to walk alongside and support what they're doing to help their kids be healthy, because that's most parents' goal.
Yeah.
I think about a quote by Dr. Henry Cloud in his book, Changes That Heals. And he talks about there's a difference between a judgmental church and a healthy AA group, if you've ever heard this quote. And he says, in a judgmental church, it's culturally unacceptable to have a problem. They're going to call you a sinner. And in a good AA group, if you act like you don't have a problem, they're going to say, dude, you're in denial. He said, in the judgmental church you attend, you look good, but you get worse. And in the healthy AA group, you attend, but you don't look that great, but you get better.
It's true.
And he says, I know that there are good churches and bad AA groups, so this is not a blanket statement, but he's saying sometimes Christians have had to go elsewhere to find their healing. And so I just think about my journey where I wish my church would have looked more like a recovery movement than just a TED Talk and a concert for an hour on Sunday, where it was more about the stage or it was more about looking good. And I was raised with authentic parents and good people, but it was just what they got handed, and they didn't always know how to talk about trauma, or they didn't even know to call things traumatic that happened to them. I think about some of my own family of origin stories, and grieving and processing pain wasn't always known how to deal with that in a healthy way. Just the joy of the Lord is your strength, pick up and keep going kind of a thing, instead of letting go, but with pain, and so we mask it instead of learn how to let it go. And then the other piece for me was just, I had so much shame around my sexual development that, like, I didn't know how shame was just my enemy. So even when my kids were young, even though I was making good, maybe better sexual choices with managing my own sexuality, my shame, because of my faith community, I didn't know how to break through like the recovery movement and just own my story and write a brave new ending, as Brene Brown says, right? When you own your story, it doesn't define you. You can write a brave new ending. I didn't know how to write that ending because I was stuck in the shame of my story. And that's what I just would say to parents. It's some of the best work you could do to help your family system is get around people. That's why I say a lot in group, the Christ and the other brothers heal the lives in me. But get in communities or get in around therapeutic individuals that can help you own and bring good, healthy language, a cohesive narrative around your story that you can share at age appropriate. And so I felt like for me, emotionally, or my ability to not live in fear. What if my boys asked me this question? I've been on a lot of podcasts and wrote this in our book, but that story, hey, Dad, have you ever looked at porn? And I'm camping with my two boys and I say, who wants more chili? I changed the subject real fast, ha, ha, ha. But that's kind of a sad part of my story because my shame I was not at a place where I could have given my boys something way better. And they then had to navigate this whole journey of being raised as a millennial and their exposure to porn. I could have held the rope for them way better than I did. And that's just a piece that I have to live with, to say, man, that's why I hate shame. because it kept me from showing up in a way better way. I'm grateful that I didn't stop growing. I'm grateful that my shame is healed. And I've had a son say, Dad, I wouldn't be this far along on my recovery if you didn't show me the way. Thank you for your humility in getting help, because I realize I'm worthy of getting help.
Yeah.
That's pretty beautiful to me.
That is beautiful.
It's not that we do everything right or everything wrong, but it's just this trajectory of keep growing. And my faith just didn't give me that. It was either black or white. It wasn't about a trajectory of growth, of health. So just talk about family systems a little bit here, where you're honest and you're safe and you're open and you're growing. I just would give you those attributes. That's a beautiful narrative where something can happen. So when a problem happens, the mindset is not how bad, but let's talk about how this can be hurtful and why there's a better way. And thank you so much for sharing. And I care about you. And this doesn't define you. And that safety becomes such a petri dish is the word that comes to my mind, but that's probably not the right word. But it just becomes a safe environment for beautiful things to grow.
Right.
And I know that in the families that I've talked with on our own family, you know, my dad died at 94, but one of the things that I contribute to him is that, like, he didn't know how to discipline or train necessarily when it came to sexual management or processing trauma. It was spare the rod, spoil the child. It was like, that was his favorite verse, you know, and I was rod and he wasn't sparing me. That's for sure. Because, you know, sin was a mistake to be punished. It wasn't a disease to be healed. So we're going to punish this out of you. And rather than just, whoa, there's some brokenness in your thinking here. You got thinking errors, cognitive distortions we know now in the therapeutic community. We want to place those lies with the truth. And when you know the truth about self, God, and others, it will lead you to some freedom. So this is where we see the gospel lived out. But if you think that, you know, punitive and punishment is what your kids need, I'm not saying that correction or consequences, they're a part of that. But at the core, it's this disease of thinking errors of the that need the great physician to heal us. And we become wounded healers, right? Those of us that have found healing, that's what Tom and Michelle Weaver are. They're just wounded healers turning and saying, see my scars?
We're following you.
Yeah.
We've been through stuff, right? We've been through stuff, and we just want to turn and help you now. And I guess, you know, for me, I look back with regret on wishing my shame would have healed more. Can't do anything about it now. It's water under the bridge. But I can build bridges today to say, you know, for my adult kids to say, hey, let me tell you more of my story. And anyway, I've talked a lot here, but I'll land on that. Hope that's helpful.
Oh, absolutely. Very helpful.
Thinking from that spouse perspective too. And I love how APSATS breaks out into those phases for people, because I think that helps. Because sometimes I'm going to be talking today and I'm talking to a phase 3 person. The phase 1's like, you know, what is she saying? Or, you know, you're talking to a phase 1 person, you know, and the phase 3 is in a different place. So that's why they're so much, if you commit yourself, not only just to get that initial, we do need an initial push for that deeper recovery work. That's like counseling and groups and books and all the things at the same time, right? And I remind people, like, rest and fun is also part of recovery, because they're doing a lot. And we need that for that initial. And then once we get the belief system that recovery is for life, it's not like, oh, how long do we have to do this? And then we're done. And recovery for life sounds kind of scary to people, but it's like it morphs into, like, that is what being a human is health for life. So you could even call it health for life, right? And we're committed to that, right? So that we started in this place with this, you know, big season of our life. It's not our whole story. It's not everything about Rodney and Traci, although we work in this line of work, right? So we talk about it a lot, right, Tom and Michelle? But it isn't our whole story. But when I look back at that, it's like grabbing onto, okay, what are the posts that I needed at the beginning? So that phase 1 part of betrayal, it's just regulation, right? You're just trying to survive. And I know there's grief for a lot of young moms that I work with. It's just like, I don't feel present right now. and there's guilt, and there's sometimes anger at our spouse, right? Because you caused this, and I'm not present. And I hear that a lot right now in that story, and I grieve with them, right? And I am that mom too, where my daughter's having third baby. She is just right about at the stage when I found out about the betrayal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And, you know, I'm like, oh, I can't even imagine. It's like grace on myself and some re-grieving to say, I look at that and I think, oh, well, no wonder I wasn't the room leader that year, and I hated doing carpool, and I was, because I was a little bit not present. And I remember times where they were in the back seat and my brain was somewhere else. And so a lot of self in that very initial part of that, you know, and we have to learn to grieve. So, I mean, grief and remembrance and creating that cohesive story, that's phase 2 work, right? And they all overlap. So, you know, don't get too hung up on that as I'm talking about that. But I love that as a baseline because it's so very true. It's that initial, and that's why I say wherever you're at is where you're supposed to be. It's very good because you need to go through that place of the grieving, and that is a part of our story. And then as you're putting the meaning back to that, what does that mean? Even just this last phase, what did all that mean, right? And our story as a whole. And then there's that phase 3 that is that post-traumatic growth and rediscovering and reclaiming things, which is beautiful. So as you journey, whatever your speed is on that, take 10 years, you know, that's scary too, right? It's like, I want it done in a year, but the inside of me knows it's going to take time. And so to honor that part in me to say, you got whatever time, girl, you need, because this is growth for life. So wherever you're at, you know, kind of affirming and taking that curious, non-judgmental,
compassion and
that
curiosity,
non-judgmental place with yourself. And then that will translate into your kids. Real honestly, you stop the judgment piece that maybe your eyes, you know, have that lens, and you turn to the curious, compassionate side. I think that it's beautiful. And there's just those verses where Jesus is like close to the brokenhearted, right? And Jesus is like, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So sometimes I'm like, okay, God, I'm feeling the burden again. Just lift that up off of me. Like whatever I think about myself or about, you know, my spouse or anyone I'm in a relationship with. So.
Yeah. There might be somebody out there holding on to that 10-year that you just said. It's like, oh my gosh, what do you mean? I have to wait 10 years. I'm going to feel like this for 10 years. And then the betrayer's over there like, it's going to take her 10 years. Are you kidding me?
I don't graduate.
So, yes. So it's like, can you speak a little bit more to that, what that might look like during those 10 years for both sides?
And I think Michelle, to that point, like Tracy brought it up, but I think, you know, I'm going to speak about my faith community growing up. I think like we have recovery for people with addictions. It creates a little bit of us versus them mentality, you know, rather than I say to people, well, I hope so. We're all addicted to our way of thinking. It's a universal problem called sin. And every one of us have some kind of problems. And we're all in need of recovery. That's called salvation, or sozo, to be made whole. So when you say your church has something for addicts, I'm like, I hope so. It's the whole human race. You know what I'm saying?
But too few don't.
But sometimes that's not our mentality about it. So when we say, how long do I have to be in recovery? You get to be in this. This is the journey. This is the path that the Creator invites us into. This is what He modeled, right? It's an participate, not I have to do this for some kind of a moralistic accountability so I don't ever make a mistake. It's more about, oh, my heart's continuing to be free. Why would I ever want to get off this journey? I just tell guys, I'm healing more layers of my onion as they arise. I just deal with them with compassion and care and keep moving. Why would I want to ever stop? You know? So some of that mentality sure helps. And then that creates that safe family system. Because as you continue to age, you know, it's the old adage, you're young once, but you can be immature your whole life. You know, age doesn't make maturity. It doesn't mean you're mature just because you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, or 70s. Maturity is a decision to keep staying humble and growing and learning. And humility looks good on everybody, I like to say.
Well, isn't that what sanctification is? Is that continued pursuit of being Christ-like?
Totally.
You know, it doesn't stop. We don't stop. Then we're good. A lot of guys think we're
joy
jealous.
in that, right,
Yeah.
Chum? Not the have to, but the get to. This is like,
Mhm.
like it's the better way they're calling us into, Father, Son, and Spirit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
Even sexually. So think about sexual management. It's the better way. So
Mhm.
Jesus isn't saying don't be sexual. He's
Mhm.
saying, oh, there's a better way to manage your sexuality. You know.
Mhm.
And to go back to your question, Michelle, that's why I say it changes over time,
Yeah.
because that 10 years doesn't mean I feel exactly the same as year one, but it gives this wide berth for losing that pressure, because there's an internal pressure that betrayed partners put on themselves that like he's healing, or it's been this long, I should be better. I think that's counterproductive to our healing. When we feel that pressure, that part in us, right, is saying, I need to be validated that whatever, so sometimes at the beginning, I'll say, I can't really tell you this is, you might want to hear this is quick, but you don't really want to hear that, because inside of you, that's not, and it would be minimizing it if I said,
Mhm.
oh, you'll get over this really quick, or here's some good tools, right? I know that from my own personal experience and from walking with a lot of people, that would minimize it, right? And on the other hand, we want to hear someone say it'll be quick.
But
It's
yet
not
there's
going
hope.
to take 10 years. So
There's no hope. You're in this
there's kind of
for decades.
there's no win right there at the beginning of whatever I tell you, because it's like, I know, and I need to be validated. But I think that when we feel our spouse take the pressure off, and we take the pressure off of ourselves, I believe I see people heal more quickly. So that's why I give that wide berth. So for one person, they're going to feel significantly better in 6 months or a year, how the trauma affected them. And for another person, they're like really upset that I hit the 2-year mark and I don't feel all better and I don't feel like myself. And I want them to keep reclaiming that. And if you have a good support person who understands betrayal, which is so important, they will know. They're like that guide on the trail that we don't know where we're going, but we have a person that's been there before, and they're going, here's some posts to grab onto, and you're going to get there. And it feels a little long right here in this phase, but there's going to be that phase where you see more sunshine and you have a little look over. I've had this in the last week, a couple people like, I felt joy. I thought I was not going to feel joy again. Right. And so, yes, there's that joy again. And in our journey, right, that taking care of ourselves becomes an overflow that flows out on other people, rather than staying in that depleted place and trying to give out of depletion, which a lot of women of faith do. They give out it more and more and more, and kind of at a depleted place. So hopefully that helps clarify a little bit for someone phase one and feeling like, what did she just say and what did she mean by that?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember at a retreat, I heard you say, for the very first time in my life, you can hold joy and grief at the same time. And I tell so many people that now. That meant a lot to me. It really did.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I think it's very true.
Yeah.
It's very true. We can hold both of those at the same time.
But I needed, I may have heard it, or I don't know, but I didn't ever resonate to me. And also you gave me that permission in that moment.
Yeah. And it sunk in and became one of your personal promises, right?
From
God. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think as our kids watch us too, Tom, and you want to lead into some of this, like what we model is way more important than what we say. That was a mantra Traci would always say to me.
Yeah.
And that more things in life are caught than they're taught. Like wasn't Rod's great dissertation with my boys while they're sitting down and the Bible's open, and anyway, I won't get into this. Anyway, we have funny stories of trying to do devotions with our kids, and that like the train just crashed in the front. Everybody got sent to their room, including Traci
People
and
are
me.
crying,
It's
going
like,
to
oh
their
my
rooms,
gosh,
our vision of family devotion.
Passing on our
shattered.
faith, like, oh God, this is a train wreck. I'm just being real. I'm just saying it is what it is. It's us. No other family can probably relate to this, but I'm just saying that Rodney, Traci. But this whole modeling piece of like what you model is really important, and it's caught more than taught. And so that's why I just think this sense of being open and safe. And I remember being in a car with my son just this fall last year, driving to a Oregon football game. We had beautiful conversations, asked me a lot about my negative sexual history. And I was able just to say, man, I'll tell you anything you want to know. This was my journey. Here's some of the things that were really problematic for me in my sexual mismanagement. And man, I really shared more detail, and I got to be careful how much I share in what audiences, because I speak in a lot of churches, and I've blown old ladies' wigs off, actually, like, oh, that's probably not good to share on a Sunday morning. Didn't want to come to church and hear that about the speaker. You know what I'm saying? So, but you know what I'm saying? Age appropriate, like they can handle this. And this is why I believe it isn't the better way, not just don't do this, but this is for me why I've come to realize this wasn't the better way. And I was trying to meet this need the wrong way. And in my journey, I've learned that there's a way better way. We need dopamine. We need good, healthy hits of oxytocin and connection and bonding. But what makes us at the end of the day become more mature, healthy people? So we do things that care for ourselves. And young Rod didn't know how to care for himself very well. He just was that little kid frustrated because of his learning disabilities and thought he was really just the worst person in the Christian faith because he was so messed up and not doing this correctly. And so I guess as we become adults, we have a little bit more compassion on our young selves. And not this, my mistakes didn't hurt. They hurt myself. They hurt my wife. They hurt my family. But they didn't come. They came from my broken woundedness is where they came from. And so that little more compassion, and then saying to, my kids, hey, investigate. Why am I doing this? Why am I drawn to this today? What's going on around me? And ask those questions. And my faith is Jesus is always extending the hand, never pointing the finger of condemnation. That's but good. I see Jesus now saying, Rod, I want to just show you the better way. Take my hand, buddy. And I'm like, but I'm afraid to be vulnerable right now, Lord. Oh, no, it's the better way. Come on, take my hand. I want to show you the better way, right? And so vulnerability, humility, growth. And, I was going to say, my dad did that, and he died at 94. But like, there was a moment where he was navigating some things as he was aging in his late 80s, and which around his physical body. And my mom said, Joe, you better tell your 4 boys, like, because when they get your age, they're going to want to know this. And so I'll never forget the conversation driving to the airport there in Spokane. And it was really beautiful because my dad had never been really open about sexuality or talking anything like that. But because of my journey of going first in my recovery and us working through some woundedness that happened to me from him and healing that relationship, we had this beautiful authenticity that he offered because of his humility. And my dad, I've explained my dad a ton. He was a cross between Billy Graham, Ronald Reagan, and 10% John Wayne. So, this guy, I just thought, I can't tell you how much I admired him, but what I admire the most isn't the churches he built or the sermons or the whatever, all that thing that I admire the guy that sat in the car and showed me his humility. That's what when I saw that, I was like, oh God, it made me love him even more because he's human too. He's living his human journey in front of us so that he's offering another path. We can go forward and be helped because of his journey.
I love what you said about the 2 things, if I can remember them now, but the woundedness that your kids can speak, or you were speaking to the woundedness that you experienced from your father. I think that's a nugget that kids need to be able to do. And then the other part was modeling it to your children, right? And that's what recovery is. We believe behavior. We don't believe words. So we have to live what we say we're doing, and modeling it to our kids is just another one of those things that we have to continue to do. And I think so many people take it upon the church to be able to say and to instruct them to do that. Everybody wants to rely on the church. The church has to do, and the church does have to, they have their part. But it also starts in the family and that family dynamic of how can we foster open communication? How can we better model what we've been through and in a healthy way, and just have open conversations about the woundedness that we've created in our own kids. And I wish, it'd be a great thing for our kids to be able to express that even more, that's healing.
Yeah. And I hope like your son did that. Oh, sorry, Tracy, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Michelle.
No, like your son did. He came to you and was asking the tough questions, maybe, that about, the hard things that maybe he was wondering about for a long time, but never was ready for himself to ask.
Yeah. I was actually honored that he did ask, and I was honored that I could just share it with no shame. I'm like, finally, 57-year-old Rodney doesn't have shame, right? I'm like, hey, at least I got here. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I'm just saying, like, and then I was like, do you want Wendy's or do you want McDonald's at the next exit? It was just a matter of, these are the facts. And there wasn't this dark cloud that rolled in the car and it got awkward or anything like that. It was like, oh man, my God, I just want to blame all the guys in my recovery groups over the years, because they were a part of that win for me, because their lives healed my shame.
That's awesome. Yeah, so good.
I was kind of going back in my mind as Rodney was talking, just thinking about as he worked through recovery with a counselor, right? Because there weren't a lot of resources. I hate to even say there wasn't internet, because that's so embarrassing. It makes
We're right there with you.
I sound so old.
As the stagecoach was taking our mail away,
We definitely couldn't Google things, and there was no like, I can do this in private and ask my question here, But I'm thinking about, like, Rodney went from that to kind of researching, and like that's where even our parent trainings and our book to help parents, it came out of that, because just in the church, he was like, I want to help young Rodneys. I want to help their dads who are not going to come to the addiction group, but they will come to help their kids. So that was like his way of, and I saw him growing in that far before I grew in that. So like, to me, now I've got these kids, I'm still back then on the wavelength of keep them from learning about things as long as you can, just protect, or whatever. That's not really possible anymore. We know in our culture, but I still was in that mind. But as I saw him, like, oh, he started reaching out to people that he trusted. Cliff and Joyce Pinner were a big impact on him that thought differently and could help guide that. And now, like, even with this podcast, there are people that can guide you, because it does feel kind of scary. And I know that for me, my daughter asked questions as a married woman. Why didn't you tell me this or whatever? I'm like, well, I didn't want to tell you that about Dad. It's like, I didn't want to go there. So like, we did have that conversation that was more general, but it was later even where I shared the betrayal story with my kids, or I shared, this was my perception of how I was sharing and being more open. So it was this process that I wish would have started much sooner. But I watched Rodney reach out and get support. So it's like, even if Rodney feels like, well, I didn't do the best I could, right? We can look back and say, we just had this amount of tools, but I saw that progression, right? And then I had to progress at some point, and mine was very late in coming. So that is why we do have that really big heart for parents, knowing that, when even pre-having kids, you start preparing yourself for how do I see my own story? Even if you were the rule follower that was like the purity culture and walked in thinking everything was going to be perfect because you did what God wanted you to do, right? And there's a lot of those stories when we're working with parents or doing parent trainings. And so whatever your story was, understanding it now, how do I want to pass that on? That's a whole, there's a whole bunch of layers of that.
You need to write a book on that.
Getting those guides to help you.
Yeah. Tom said you need to write a book on that.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say to the betrayed partner that's a female, like Traci talked about just being so judgmental on herself when she looked back. And if you're going to write Traci, I had such high marks for her as a parent. She's really a phenomenal mom. And sometimes because she doesn't have grace for herself when she was navigating my betrayal, like somehow I should have just got through that better and been more present. And I just would say to the mom that's listening, or the betrayed spouse, and be kind and compassionate on yourself. Yeah. We all do the best we can with the tools we have. And if you keep growing and you can just model for your kids that I wasn't in a good place and here's why, I just want to speak words of compassion and love to all those moms and dads out there, the betrayed partner, who feel like it's all going to hell in a handbasket now. And put your mask on first and then find your kid's mask when you get yours securely on and you're taking in oxygen, and then try to help them the best you can. But it's we can just do what we can do. And Traci, she's the biggest gift to our family, and she has created so much connection and taught me a lot about it's okay to love people in their imperfections. And she's modeled that in so many great ways, where I still have some of that judgmental of our kids, don't make mistakes, let's do this the right way, blah, blah, blah. Traci's helped me to say, man, how can I help you grow through this? And so it's the beauty. I just would say to the betrayed partner, be kind to yourself. And realize that you can just do what you can do in helping your kids. And sometimes doing is saying, I'm not doing well and I got to go get help. That could be the best thing you could model to your kids.
Yeah.
And then you turn to your kids and say, when the day comes and you're not doing well, I want you to know it's okay to cry and to grieve and to go get help, because that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So good. So
Yeah.
To
true.
me, that's so good, right? Like, to me, like, that is one of the best things you model.
Yeah.
You know?
A tool that I've used, Michelle, I don't know if you've used this one or experienced yourself, because I have. That's where it started, was with me, is writing that letter to my younger self. And usually that young mom self is a good place to start as we age, because we can be really hard on ourselves. And if we walk through betrayal during that period, I hear moms all the time just kind of being hard on themselves, right? Of like, I wasn't present, or I felt like my brain was noodles and I couldn't do everything I wanted to. And I think that's a beautiful exercise to either write it down or be able to share that with another person to reflect that back, that young me. How do I have grace for that young mom? Because most moms we really want to do a good job. And so we can be hard on ourselves around a lot of different areas. And so I think that's a really good exercise sometimes, is how do I go into compassion for young me who knew what I knew then?
Right.
Same for Rodney. Like, we knew what we knew and we were doing the best with the tools we had at the time and in our brokenness. And as we've gone, we've grown,
Yeah. That's a great tool. That's a great exercise. It's hard, but it's also freeing, I think. Don't you think? It helps you breathe again. It's like, okay, I did the best I could.
Yeah. And vulnerability looks good. It's our superpower. As one of my friends says, vulnerability is our superpower. It draws people to us. And so that sense of just being vulnerable with our children, it's such a gift that you give. And for many of us, maybe it just wasn't modeled. So for the listener who says, my family, man, vulnerability was never modeled. That's okay. You can see it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Get into a recovery movement group somewhere, where people show up and are just real. And it's okay to be real, and it's okay not to be okay. And that actually is a beautiful gift. I'm going to grab a poem real quick because I want to read it before we conclude.
All right, go ahead.
Poetry, and it'll be apropos. So
well, I want to say, just on that line of groups, right? Rodney says a lot, like, group really healed his shame. He was sober a long time before he had group, because that era. But I think the same way, Michelle, like, as you were talking, I'm like, yeah, when someone we respect says, I felt shame as a mom, right? Instead of this culture of like, I'm trying to get it all right and setting myself up as the example of everything I did right. I think on both sides of that coin, when we respect and we see them being vulnerable and grow, and that helps heal our shame. Like, other moms have struggled with this. Yes. People I respect, same with addiction. Other men have struggled with this. People I respect. Wow, I really respect you more that you leaned into that, and went on that healthy journey. So I think group is such a big part of that, for a healthy, safe group. Like the biggest.
I can't tell you.
Healthy, safe group.
I can't tell you how many guys walk into group and say, I was never talking about this to anybody else. I carried my own shame and stuffed it. I walk into this place where we got 10, 15 or 100 guys at the, like you said, at the retreat last year. We all know why we're here, right? We're all here for the same reason. You don't have to guess. We're all here, and just releasing that. And the guys at the retreat, a couple of guys have told me that they were so nervous and the anxious and the anxiety that they had walking into that room, and then knowing that everybody was there for the same reason, and just being able to start talking to other people and just releasing all that anxiety and that shame, for that weekend, to see, hey, we're all here for the common cause. And I'm here in this group for healthy and having conversations over and over and over again. Yeah, it just kills that shame.
Remember, Tom, we did that No Man Stands Alone survey.
Great.
It's so powerful to realize, wow, this is a Me Too movement.
Right. Exactly.
If I'm allowed to say, that is something the two of you bring to the table. I say that to people all the time. Like I said, I recommend people when they're in your neck of the woods, right? The other side of the country, I recommend them all the time. And one of the things that I say is in that vulnerability, or even if they're talking about their husband, and I'm like, these two will be vulnerable with their story, and you will experience that safety to embrace your story. I mean, I mean that 100%. And because I'm not just saying it in front of you, I say it behind your back. So
you can do that.
That is something your pastoral leadership and mentorship.
Absolutely.
I have the highest regard for that and how you lead in that. So you need to write a book and lead others. There you go. Back at you. Back at you.
Thank you. That means so much.
That is so nice.
We try. We do our best. We do our best.
For sure.
It's healthy.
Really try. Yeah.
So tell me about this poem, Rodney.
Yeah. So it's just a friend gave me a book, a little bit of his life story. And I was crying in the opening poem before I even read his endorsements. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a tough one for me. But it's a poem, and forgive me, I don't have the name of the author. And I made just one adaptation to it. That's a little bit more to my story, but it's called The Bridge Builder. And I'll do my best to read poetry from someone who took English as a second language in college. So it says, an old man was going along highway, came at the end of evening, cold and gray, to a chasm, vast and deep and wide, through which was flowing a sullen tide. The old man crossed at twilight dim. The sullen stream was a real challenge for him. But he turned when safe on the other side and built a bridge to span the tide. Old man, said a fellow pilgrim near, you're wasting your strength with building here. Your journey will end with the ending day. You'll never again pass this way. You've crossed this chasm deep and wide. Why build a bridge at evening tide? The bridge builder lifted his old gray head. Good friend, in the path I have come, he said, there followed after me today a youth whose feet must pass this way. This chasm that has been a challenge to me, for my fair-haired youth may a pitfall be. He too must cross in twilight dim. Good friend, I'm building this bridge for him.
That's so
And
good.
I think to me, it captures the men and women that have gone before us and owned their story and turned and built bridges for us to cross to get to where we are here today, you know, the four of us. And it just thinks about my life at 58. I think the most beautiful thing is I could just build bridges to say to other people on this journey, you're not alone. Here's some light to shine on the pathway when you cross that chasm that's vast, deep, and wide. When the solemn tide comes in, you'll know how to navigate it. And I wish I would have had more of a bridge, but instead of living in, wow, how tough that was for me, I want to make it better, hopefully, for somebody else that's coming down the path.
And you are. You both are.
Oh my gosh.
So helpful to others. Appreciate it.
Love you both so much.
Yep.
So I guess in closing, what would be some, I mean, that's a tough one to follow up with.
It's like, we get in there.
Where could people get a hold of you guys, I guess, if they're looking for help or looking for some resources, Pure Desire, whatever else you got, or any parting other nuggets of information you'd like to share? That poem was really amazing, though. It's hard to top that one, but
it's beautiful. Yeah. Well, you can always text Tom. He has all my information. So I can always say, call me because I'm that kind of person. But, you know, with just Pure Desire or anything, I just would say, you know, you're worthy of getting help. If we can help you, we will. If not, we'll point you to other people and resources that can. We're part of a big movement here. That God's running. And there's so many threads in this, you know, this fabric that God's pulling together. So just know whatever it is, you know, there's people and resources that can help you. You can reach out to us at Pure Desire. And
one of the reasons people come to Pure Desire and to you guys as well is that based approach coming together. That's very important to people, right? And it's healthy in a lot of ways. There's some really big health in the marriage of those two things. And so I think that's one thing that Pure Desire offers. I do consultations and I always say there's lots of ways to heal. This is what the strengths are in this and this way. And we do have consultations for group and for counseling there. And we have an education wing as well. So those will be the three kind of things we point you to if you're looking at Pure Desire.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then our book that we wrote, it wasn't because we're experts and our kids never made mistakes. And we've got the corner on doing everything perfect to help your kids never be they can be mistake free. In fact, someone asked Traci, well, you wrote the book. How did your kids turn out? And Traci responded,
They're perfect. They're perfect.
Drum roll, right? Because we know that's not true. But they're humans and they're going to struggle too. We want to be there to help them. So I guess, I would just say for any young couple or any parents or grandparents, the more you can learn about healthy family systems, the more you can get resources about thinking about sexuality from a different framework, starting from a good place, not a place of destruction or betrayal or addiction, but it's actually has a beautiful beginning. The more you can rewrite the story about human sexual development, then you can pass on, I think, something even healthier to your kids instead of just beware of the pitfalls. But when you cross the bridge, get your head up. There's a beautiful vista ahead. Don't miss the vista, Sure. And the narrative around sexuality for many of us, because of betrayal or addiction, it can take a negative tone. How can you rewrite that framework with your kids to celebrate sexuality? And now it's about managing it in healthy ways, married or single for the rest of our lives. Okay. That's a different narrative than staying pure in marriage or, just try to stay pure before marriage. It's just, it's about management. And when I say management, how we think about it, how we feel about it, what we believe about it, what our actions say about sexual management. So those are all a part of our human sexuality. And it's a beautiful story and a beautiful narrative. We wouldn't be here without sexuality, all four of us. We're products of an orgasm and intercourse. We're products of that. So, that's to be celebrated. Strategic nerve endings, my kind of God. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes we just need to have joy over the beauty. Absolutely. And sometimes because of the pain, it's kept us from the joyfulness of this wonderful gift that God's given us.
And I would say too, our book is much more about healthy family systems. It isn't like that book you get that our kids are 3 or 4 or they're a teenager and this tells us the download of exactly. We have some of that in broader than that. So really for a teen, pre-marriage, a baby, and all the way to grandparents and your kids are grown, it's these healthy family system principles for you to think about and you to adopt for yourself more than Rod and Traci said to do this. Let's do it exactly that way. And we're not really into saying this is what, we know the truth. We know the right way. You do it this way. But we're helping get you think about how you create that system and you continue on with that system. So.
It's so good.
Yeah. And sometimes we think sex is just how do you explain intercourse? Like that's the epitome of sexuality. Like the penis gets erect, it goes into a lubricated vagina. Lubrication helps, right? The urethra closes where the urine comes out, and the testicles produce sperm and semen, and they insert and they take a big swim and they fertilize the egg, and it's in the urethra and it attaches and it grows. Right? Sometimes we just make it so dramatic. And that's it. Did you get it? Yeah. Rather than the story you can do that in about 40 seconds, as I just did, right? The general how-tos, but it's more around the narrative around all this. Why is it so beautiful? Why is it sacred? Why is it holy in such a beautiful way? How does it bond us?
And the dignity, honor, and respect to myself and others from the start, right? That's what boundaries are when a child is very little. That's what communicating with the technical terms are of our body, dignity, honor, and respect, and then teaching that. Because that goes all the way through too, from little tiny through those teenage years, for pre-marriage, young adult, all the way through life.
Some parents want the best way to tell that 30-second narrative that I just told, right? And I say, well, with some humor and with some, but all facts. Stick with the facts, right?
Now you can refer them to this video.
Yeah.
The proper language, like the baby isn't in mom's tummy, it's in her uterus, right? Like just the facts. What are the facts? Keep it real. You know what I mean? Absolutely. And I'm just saying, if we don't have a positive narrative around those things, and if you say erection or penis or nerve endings or clitoris or orgasm, if those are scary words because of our trauma sometimes, because of our lack of good clarity around sexual communication, that's just another piece that we can continue to move into to keep healing with, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because I said nothing dirty, evil, or sinful.
By design, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm just telling a narrative about ways we can communicate this that are much more beautiful, grand, and respect, dignity, and honor, you know. So
good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate your time, guys, and we thank you so much for joining us today. And you're really, truly good friends, and we love you both. And look forward to seeing you again soon. And thanks again for all your wisdom. We always enjoy talking to you.
Thanks for being with us. Oh, so good to see you.
With you always.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.